Hi, friends. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Raheel. I'm a product leader and an entrepreneur currently living and working in Dubai. So, a couple of months ago, I quit my six-figure consulting job at one of the best consulting firms in the world. We all hear a lot of glamorous stuff about consulting, and I went in having those exact same biases, but it turns out the reality is a little different. So, in this video, I just wanted to share my thoughts, my experiences in consulting, and what were the reasons behind me quitting consulting at the end of the day, and why I think I'll never go back. So let's start with the first reason. I want to start with explaining what we consultants actually do. So a client comes up to us, tells us their problem, and it's our job to go figure out a solution. A lot of the times, what we do, the solutions that we build, are basically a part of a smoke and mirrors game. It's about the narrative that we build, regardless of the fact that we are solving a problem or we're not solving a problem. But if this is something that aligns with what is happening in the world today, and it has a couple of risky assumptions that we're making underneath the model, and we present a solution and we build a nice narrative around it, show some jazzy hands, have amazing presentations, and kind of like woo the client without focusing a lot on the quality of the content. And I think this is part where we're putting on a show for the client just to make sure that the solution that we're proposing goes out. A lot of the times the solution that we're proposing can differ a lot from reality. And I've seen that happen again and again, in which we're presenting a solution to the client, which I know from technical experience, from real experience, that when it goes into the hands of the users, it will fail, or it's following a fad that is currently going on in the market. So, for example, metaverse is hot today. Put metaverse in every solution for the client. Oh, AI is hot today. Forget about metaverse. Put AI in everything. So I just felt that it's kind of like deceiving the client by putting on this show, which is far away from reality. And I just felt that ethically speaking, I did not want to be a part of it. The second reason why I ultimately quit was the impact. Since I come from a startup background, my heroes have been companies like Facebook, Microsoft, Apple, and they've been making a huge impact in the market. Right? We use their products are amazing. We use software by Microsoft, it saves our lives, it helps us build stuff. And the impact that these companies are creating, even Silicon Valley startups are creating, I think it's immense. So when I went into consulting, I was under the impression that we're going to work on really hard, complicated problems, and we are actually going to create an impact, which turned out to be completely false. Because a lot of the time, what we were doing was we were just providing clients with suggestions and recommendations on how to solve the problem, right? But that was it. This is the maximum that we were doing. The client implements it, doesn't implement it, not our headache. Implements it, gets results after, I don't know, 12 months, 5 years. We have no clue about that. So we're providing these solutions that we think are the best solutions, but we are never able to see them getting executed in the real world. So we as consultants, we actually never know if the solution that we provided was successful or not. So we were not really making an impact. So I think that was one of the biggest things that was bothering me throughout my time at my job, which was basically, man, you're providing all these solutions. I don't agree with the complexity, the level, the authenticity of these solutions. And on the second hand, we're just providing these recommendations, and that's it. Our job is done. We're not on the grounds implementing it. And I'm kind of a person who actually likes to build stuff, and I would like to see what I build in the hands of the users. If they don't use it, I get honest feedback of that, man, this sucks, right? Build something better. And that improves me and keeps me intellectually honest as well. And now the next part brings me on to the concept of PowerPoints. right? We as consultants are very well versed in creating PowerPoint presentations, in building a narrative that is going to impress you a lot, which I found was problematic on a lot of levels. Firstly, there was no depth in the content, right? We're doing a lot of research, that's completely fine, but then we're filtering out in recommendations and creating these really pretty PowerPoint presentations, and charging a lot of money for it, right? But then again, we're just researching and getting these facts together for our clients, which I felt was not that great of a work. It was more of a glorified researchers, and we are basing all our findings on secondary data that anyone could find on Google. We are interviewing people, but we are interviewing people without having that real ground experience, which I felt brought us a little away from reality and more towards, oh, this is what it's going to look like, this is going to be amazing, and we're going to make it really cool because we got this interview done from this expert, and we talked to this expert to get this knowledge from them, which we have presented to our client. So I felt that a lot of our findings, a lot of the work that we were doing, it was not just uh, it was not bringing me closer to the reality, because it was not iterative, it was absolute, and I have a problem with absolute things because absolute things can be wrong, and there's no room for improvement and there's no room for fixing your mistake, which is why I like the iterative approach, in which you provide a small solution, you go test it out in the market, you get your feedback, and you improve based on the feedback that you're receiving from the market versus something that you believe, this is these are the assumptions that I'm making, this is what the model says, and this is what we're going to do it. So I felt the PowerPoint part, the presentation part, the narrative part was all too deceiving for the client. And then we're just telling clients what clients wanted to hear, and not really building stuff, which I felt was really waste of my time. Which brings me on to the fourth point, which was you're not building real stuff. You're literally a researcher who's going back and solving stuff theoretically. That's it. Because think about this: when you're creating a value model for your fintech client, trying to solve their capex or their opex problem, you're just gathering a lot of data, running a lot of numbers, building these assumptions to make sure that your numbers make sense at the end of the day, which I felt was interesting per se. Why? Because I'm making these assumptions as a consultant without understanding how the real industry actually works. Because me as a consultant, I've never worked in that industry before. I have advised a lot of clients in that specific industry. I have a generalized idea of what the ground reality looks like, but I've never really worked at a real, for example, manufacturing company, or I've built a manufacturing plant from grounds up to understand how economics of that manufacturing firm works. Which is why I've seen a lot of senior consultants, they actually have real world manufacturing experience, and those consultants tend to become much more successful versus people who are generalized. But the problem is, since all consultants are chasing money, so they're just providing these solutions, jazzy hands, and what clients actually want to hear, which I think is, again, intellectually dishonest. And you're not solving that core problem. You're basically just doing a bunch of research, coming up with a narrative, sending that over to the client, getting that check, moving on to the next project, and then just looking at these trends. What is happening? Is metaverse cool today? Is AI cool today? Tomorrow, Gen AI, right? So we're talking about all these topics and capitalizing on it, which I think fine, but I would never hire someone who has no real world experience building something in my industry and getting them to do work for me. I think it's a recipe for disaster, which is why I understand why in Silicon Valley, the great startups of the world, they do not like consultants. And this brings me on to my final point that I want to share with you guys, which is the hierarchy part, which in India, Pakistan, and our subcontinent region is known as the Sate culture, right? I've seen so many talented people who were at the analyst level with great ideas, but they're just too afraid to speak up. even if they do speak up, the MDs, the senior consultants, the senior managers, they're just sitting down and just shooting their ideas away because, oh, this is not how it works. This is not what you're saying. You don't know what you're saying. You don't have the data to back it up. Even if they bring evidence to back it up, it's so difficult to convince your MDs, your directors, that this is the right path to go, because they're just following a playbook that has worked for them over the past couple of years. They think that this playbook is going to work for the next 30 years, so that hierarchy is there. A lot of times, it really happened in reality. For client calls, the analysts are not really allowed to speak, right? Even if they have good ideas and suggestions, um, they have to take permission from the senior guy to speak up, and which I think is problematic because I come from the startup world where even young people have brilliant ideas. In fact, I know a lot of young people who have gone out and changed the world by building products that these old guys or dinosaurs never had the chance to do so, right? And they get disrupted at the end of the day, which basically means young people, we need to listen to them, we need to really understand them. But if young people are not given that environment of nourishment where they're free to express their creativity, free to challenge each other's thoughts, arguments, I think that's a big recipe for disaster. Which is why I think in terms of growth, you might get exposure working in multiple different industries, but if you're never on the ground, you're so far away from reality that you actually don't know how things actually work. And you're bringing in a lot of theoretical information, which is why a lot of consulting projects, they die off. And we are never really able to understand what the impact was of, whether or not it was a successful project or not. Now, not all consulting is bad. There's technology consulting in which you're building solutions for your clients and you're implementing them. I think that is wonderful. There's financial consulting in which you're giving investment advice, which I find problematic. And the reason why I find problematic is if you don't have skin in the game, right? If I don't own that piece in my portfolio, why would I recommend that to you, right? So it's kind of like that. If you want to really give me advice about investment, just show me your portfolio, and that is advice enough. So I think there's good parts to consulting. There's definitely bad parts to consulting, but the bad parts, I felt, they hamper your growth as an individual. And everyone is just trying to get to that top level hierarchy, pulling each other down, being sycophants to their MDs, which I think is kind of like a circus and not something for people who really want to build stuff, who really want to make an impact, who really want to take away the bullshit, the noise from the information, and build something that truly impacts the world versus giving advice that might or might not work. And so when all of these reasons combined, I was really unhappy in my consulting job, and I just felt that this is a recipe, and if I stick around, I won't be able to grow at all. And which is why I think for younger people, it's really important for them to consider what they value more, right? They need to value creativity. They need to value getting into the roots of stuff, joining a startup, joining a product-led company, joining a company that actually is solving real problem needs versus just consulting and giving advices for a living. So I think for young people, they need to take more risks and go into industries that will give them the exposure of how things work on the ground. Because if you understand the fundamental building blocks of stuff, only then you're able to innovate on top of it. Versus reading something in your classroom, reading something in theory, and trying to apply it in real life. 95% of the time, it doesn't really work. Because the reality, the real groundwork has so many nuances and complexities that unless and until you're not in the weeds of it, you're not able to get the entirety of it, which I feel a lot of people who go into consulting, they miss out. Fine, the money is good, right? The package is good, but I don't think that money is enough uh, to keep you in a job that eventually kills off your brain cells and kills off your massive ability to go do something meaningful in the world. But then again, it really depends on circumstances. But this has been my experience. So if there are individuals out there, if the reader, if the listener is someone who really wants to build stuff, get to the root level of how things actually work, then consulting is not for you. If you're just looking for a nice little job, settle in, have a nice linear career of the next 5 6 years, and you don't really care about the hierarchy part, go for it. That might be for you, but my experience was entirely the opposite. I would do something much better with my time versus, do some research and build nice little PowerPoints for my clients. But to each its own, I guess. But I just wanted to share my experience with you because I see a lot of people diving into consulting and just focusing on the good parts of it and forgetting about the trade-offs that are, I think, much more dangerous than how attractive the good parts are. So I hope this video shed some light on the other side of consulting, and I really hope you find it insightful in helping you make your decision about if you're thinking about going into consulting. I'll be sharing more, so if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe. I share videos every Saturday, every Sunday, and again, thank you so much for your support. I hope you like this video. Like, comment, give me your feedback. I love engaging with my people. Thank you so much. I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.